We are ready to start. Dilshan, are you going to say something?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, hi everyone. We are delighted to have you all today, this morning, and I wish to welcome you all on behalf of the Walpola Rahula Institute and our faith-based fellowship attached to the institute, who sort of conceptualized this today's program. So before I introduce to you our distinguished speaker, I feel it is a bit necessary to speak to you briefly of our fellowship. So it's a interfaith fellowship, and this fellowship sort of stands out with other interfaith initiatives because this is sort of led by laymen. But of course, the initial steps of convening this group was drawn by our dearest Theo, and presently Theo and few other clergy persons sort of takes up a role as spiritual mentors. And this fellowship also consists of individuals from all walks of life, representing with the representation of followers of sister faiths, and it is it includes men and women of diverse professions, ages, and experience, etc. So, simply the purpose of this fellowship is to, it's about realizing that Sri Lanka and humanity as a whole must engage actively in a spiritual journey, in a broader understanding of, transcending religiosity to make tomorrow followed by this moment better. So, having had the opportunity for me to meet Sepali, actually through Vindhya, who also sort of, voiced out the idea that we should do something like this. It was good because to say a little bit more about Sepali, she's a counselor and holding a graduate diploma in counselling and psychological work from the University of Colombo. She also has received training on compassionate inquiry with Dr. Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate. Sepali has been also trained in Past Life Regression by Dr. Weiss, the leading authority on this therapy. So Sepali is also certified as a level 2 QHHT Practitioner from the
Dolores Academy.
Yes, and apart from that, she has been actively being engaged in the private sector and also in the legal field for many years. So thanks, Sepali, for giving us this time of your busy schedule to be with us, to walk in hand in our collective transformation journey of healing. So once again, to say a little bit more about this initiative, the journey of healing is simply accepting who we are as individuals, to pause from our busy competitive lives and to search within ourselves whether we are wounded, whether are we hurt, so which consequently have made our companions, families, society, and country at large to suffer. So before I hand it over to Sepali, I would request everyone to sort of put your phones into vibrate or silent, otherwise we will be traumatized during the process. So Sepali, over to you.
Right, thanks. So, hello again. Today's topic, journey of healing, is a very extensive topic. It's a very vast subject. So what I will do today is give you a template, a sort of a skeleton. And I invite you to ask questions, share your experiences, seek clarification, and to give this template, this skeleton, some meat, as I pause at certain milestones of this journey. I also invite you to take a minute to acknowledge that today you have shown up for yourself, for your well-being, and that is coming from a compassionate place within yourself, for yourself. It's a part of you that is healthy, and it's a part of you that's compassionate. And it is this healthy and compassionate part of you which will lead you today on this journey of healing. So to get the most from today's meeting, we all need to create a safe space for everyone. A brave space for everyone. A safe space where there is no judgment. A brave space where we will have the courage just to be ourselves, just our authentic selves. For this, we need to respect one another and to maintain confidentiality of any personal stories or experiences we may be sharing today. So to start off, let me come up with a disclosure. This is the first time I'm addressing a gathering such as this. I can feel my heart beating fast. My fingers, I can feel, are trembling. I'm nervous. I have fear. Fear that I may be rejected. But also, somewhere inside me, I think, yeah, it's in my heart, there's also a little bit of excitement. And that excitement is about a hope that everything will go well today and that we will all be able to have some insight on our journey of healing. What I'm doing today is I've made some notes on my phone, and I'll be looking at it from time to time, just to refresh my mind and sometimes to read some quotations. And I assure you, when I'm doing that, I'm not checking on my Facebook. So, back to the topic of healing. If there is a need for healing, what is there now? What has happened that we need healing? Pardon? There's a wound. There's a wound, an injury. There's a wound. So the Greeks call it trauma. Trauma in Greek, they call it trauma, and the meaning is wound. So what is trauma? Dr. Gabor Mate, I don't know whether you've heard of him, Dr. Gabor Mate, he's a physician, he's a renowned speaker, he has written several books, and he's an expert on childhood development, trauma, stress, and addiction. He explains trauma. This is how he defines. He says trauma is not what happened to us, but trauma is what happened inside of us as a result of what happened to us. And he also goes on to explain it is a psychic wound that leaves a scar. It leaves an imprint in your nervous system, in your body, in your psyche, and then shows up in multiple ways that are not helpful to you later on.
Intrauterine life is not a paradise, as some people try to make us believe.
This substance feels every little feeling that the mother feels.
This is something that we're just beginning to explore gene by gene.
Human beings are affected by the environment as soon as they have an environment. And that means as soon as we're implanted in the womb.
I was thinking to myself, just breathe, just breathe, just breathe.
Fetuses of mothers who were high anxious showing differences almost, we want to say, in temperament.
We see reduced brain volume, reduced gray matter density.
People are conceiving, carrying, and birthing children under increasingly stressed conditions.
My grandmother had undiagnosed depression, which then contributed to my mother's stress level as well. And how that got transmitted to me, and how I was going to transmit that to the next generation.
When we see dysfunction in people, we're actually seeing the imprint of that early experience.
An adult trauma is really a fetal trauma.
And this has been the missing piece, the foundation for our whole life.
When you come to a point of knowing what is the cause of all this, when you have an answer, like the door opens.
So, where does it all start? Any guesses? Any idea where it all starts? It starts in the womb. So, I'll just read it out. As the mother's body is providing the care to the child in utero, any stress the mother experiences can transfer to the child. If the type of stress is particularly bad, this can cause the child trauma. Trauma in utero is commonly caused by chaotic, unpredictable lifestyle factors, including, but not limited to, the mother's exposure to domestic violence, lack of antenatal care, substance misuse during pregnancy. Stress experienced by the mother can lead to elevated levels of cortisol, which can be passed on to the unborn child via the placenta. Prenatal exposure to maternal stress and toxic substance misuse can have significant and sometimes lifelong implications on the child. So this I've taken from the Australian Capital Territory website, community services, where they help communities. And stress need not be like the war going on, or domestic violence, or what we call the big T's, the big traumas, the abuse, the neglect, the violence. But anything that the mother is feeling, some stress, work stress, our lifestyle stress, the demands that are made of the woman today, in today's lifestyle. She's got to be a good mother, she's got to be a good wife, she's got to have a good career, she's got to look nice, she needs to be very able to deal with demanding social situations. So it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot that is being expected of a woman today. So it's not necessarily the big T's, but it's also these other stresses which the mother experiences, which can be felt by the fetus in the womb.
Intrauterine life is not a paradise, as some people try to make us believe.
This substance feels every little feeling that the mother feels.
This is something that we're just beginning to explore gene by gene.
Human beings are affected by the environment as soon as they have an environment. And that means as soon as we implant it in the womb.
I was thinking to myself, just breathe, just breathe, just breathe.
Fetuses of mothers who were high anxious showing differences almost, we want to say, in temperament.
We see reduced brain volume, reduced brain matter density.
People are conceiving, carrying, and birthing children under increasingly stressed conditions.
My grandmother had undiagnosed depression, which then contributed to my mother's stress level as well. And how that got transmitted to me, and how I was going to transmit that to the next generation.
When we see dysfunction in people, we're actually seeing the imprint of that early experience.
An adult trauma is really a fetal trauma.
And this has been the missing piece, the foundation for our whole life.
When you come to a point of knowing what is the cause of all this, and you have an answer, like the door opens.
Okay, so let's take a pause there. And is there anything that you'd like to ask, share, seek clarification, relevant to what I've been talking about up to now? Yes?
You were talking about childhood trauma, which may result in maybe adulthood or whatever. Somebody who has gone through childhood trauma, is there a cure or help for that person?
Yeah, so that's where we are going to. So still we are in the womb state, and next comes to the infant. So then when you're born, then you're the infant. And what is the fundamental need of the infant? The attachment. Babies, children need to feel connected to their primary caregivers. The most fundamental threat for a child is separation. So baby, the infant, needs to feel physically close to the parent. Carrying the baby, holding the baby, cuddling the baby, sleeping with the baby creates a feeling of emotional safety for the baby. And that's how the baby's emotional development takes place. The more connected they are to their, most often the primary caregiver is the mom, but it does, whoever is the primary caregiver or caregivers, the more they need to bond emotionally. So how they bond is to feel safe, to feel connected with the mother or the primary caregiver. And this actually also has an impact on the nervous system and the development of the brain. The neural pathways in the brain are being formed during this time. Up to the time up to 2 years, there is only the emotional part of your brain which is there. Your rational part of the brain starts developing after 2-3 years. So this emotional part is very important for the child, and that comes with the bonding with the mother, the caregiver. This emotional bond is the most crucial feature for the healthy emotional development of the child. And no parent is perfect. But as long as you are able to do your best to make this, to bond with the baby, to feel, for the baby to feel this attachment, the more healthy is the emotional development of the child. And this emotional development of the child is going to impact the entire life of this child. Can you show that snapshot?
That's right.
Yeah. So as for letting kids cry it out, it's barbaric. Crying for an infant is the only way to let us know that what they need and to connect physically. They cannot reason or say, my parents love me, they just need sleep, they are tired. So they feel it as the parents don't give a damn. So when the parents are very stressed, especially nowadays in our society, in our culture, So the baby cannot rationalize it. That rational part of the brain hasn't even started developing. So that when the parent is not connecting, for whatever reason, and it's not because the parent wants to harm the child, the parent, I'm sure, loves the child, but for whatever reason, it could be stress because of work, because of societal expectations, a relationship issue with the husband, what's going on at work, relationship issues with the rest of the family, and the mother is not able to connect, to give the attention that the baby needs for the baby to have that healthy attachment and the healthy emotional development.
When parenting practices inhibit a child from experiencing all their emotions, that interferes with the child's brain development. What are the essential needs of human children for healthy development? A safe, secure attachment relationship with parents who are emotionally attuned and present for them. The child not having to work to make the relationship work. So the child can be at rest in a relationship. The freedom of the child to experience and express all their emotions. So the human brain is wired, like all mammals are wired, for certain emotions, including joy, playfulness, curiosity, grief, fear, anger. And so take something like depression, just a simple example. What does it mean to depress something? It means to push it down. What gets pushed down in depression? I've had depression, and what gets pushed down is your emotions. But why would somebody push down their emotions? Because they weren't allowed to express them, because the expression of emotion threatened their relationship with their parents.
Okay, so for the child, there are about 5 basic needs for healthy emotional development. The child has to feel loved. The child has to feel safe. The child has to feel accepted for who they are. The child should not have to work for acceptance. The child doesn't have to perform to feel accepted by the parents, get good grades, do well in sports, be clever or look good or whatever. The child needs to be accepted the way he or she is, unconditional acceptance. Then the child also needs to be able to freely express himself. Express what he's feeling. And if he feels unsafe to do that, as he said, then you start suppressing your feelings. If you feel scared to cry or to have a tantrum and get angry and retort or say something, and if you do that and you are met with some sort of punishment, the child is not able to express his feelings. So he's going to bottle it up, keep it within himself. And the child is also wired for play, free play. It's not about being on a device. It's about playing in nature, out there in nature. And all of this is contributing to the neural pathways in his brain and his emotional development. And all of this is going to have an impact later on in life.
When a child is born, the child has 2 needs. The first need is for attachment. And attachment is contact, connection, love. Without that, the human child does not survive. Any mammalian child or even an avian child doesn't survive. So that as soon as you get past the level of reptiles, the reptile is hatched, the mother's long gone by then, and the reptile infant either lives or dies, but there's no attachment to a parenting figure. As soon as you get to the level of birds now, the baby bird has to have an attachment with the parents. The parents have to be attached to the baby. Otherwise, the infant simply does not survive. Mammalians even more so, and most so the human, because we're the least developed, the least mature, with the least developed brains, and the most dependent for the longest period of time of any creature in the universe. So our attachment needs are enormous, and they remain important throughout lifetime because we have to have attachments to form societies, social groups, without which we don't survive. So attachment is a huge need. We have to connect, belong, be loved by, and love. That's just a basic human need. But we have another need as well, which is for authenticity. Authenticity is the capacity, as I said earlier, to know what we feel, to be in touch with our bodies, and to be able to express who we are and manifest who we are in our activities and in our relationships. Now, why is that? Well, think of a human being in the evolutionary period who's not in touch with their body and their gut feelings. How long do they survive out there in the wild? So authenticity is another huge survival need. Great. So far, so good. But what happens to a child where the attachment need is not compatible with the need for authenticity? In other words, if I'm authentic, my parents will reject me. If I feel what I feel and express what I feel and insist on my own truth, my parents can't handle it. And parents convey those messages unconsciously all the time. Not because they mean to, not because they don't love the child, not because they're not trying to do their best, but because they themselves are suppressed, or traumatized, or hurt, or stressed. So I convey that message many times to my children, believe me, without any conscious desire to do so. In fact, it was the very opposite of what I wished to convey. But that they're not acceptable the way they are, with their emotions the way they are, that's the message my kids got when they were small. And most children get that in our society. And what does the child do with that? Well, if I give up my attachment for the sake of authenticity, I lose my relationships on which my life depends. Therefore, there's no question. What becomes suppressed is our authenticity, our emotions. And then we become 25 and 30 or 35, 40, and we don't know who we are. And somebody asks us, what do you feel? You say, I have no idea. And how many times we've all had the experience of having an inkling of a strong gut feeling, but we're ignoring it? We're ignoring it and we get into trouble. Well, that tells us what happened. What happened was that at some point we found out it was too costly for our attachment relationships to be in touch with our gut feelings. So then it becomes our first, not our first nature, but our second nature, to suppress our feelings, to lose touch with ourselves, and to suppress our gut feelings. And then we pay the cost later on in the form of addictions, mental illness, or any range of physical illnesses. But it all began with this tragic conflict that children should never be confronted with, but are all the time, between authenticity on the one hand and attachment on the other. And even as adults, so many people are suffering because they want to be themselves, but they're afraid to be because they know, or at least they fear that if they're themselves, they're going to lose important attachment relationships in their life.
So, attachment versus authenticity, pretty self-explanatory. So, the child, for the child, attachment is the most important need. And if they are unable, authenticity is also important, but if they are unable to be authentic, and at the same time to have the attachment, guess what the child will choose? So when the child is not able to form that attachment bond with the mom, something happens. The child, what do you think will be easier for the child? Will the child think, oh, my parents really have no clue how to look after me, to how to give me the emotional needs that I require? Or do you think it's easier for the child to think, oh, maybe the problem lies with me? What do you think is easier for the child?
Problem lies with
me. Yeah. Because they have found if the child actually said to himself, my parents have no clue how to look after me, the shock is so much, the child will survive only for 10 minutes. So it's actually your survival. The child is not consciously thinking all these things out, but it's unconsciously happening. Your survival mechanism kicks in and things So the problem, it's so much easier because otherwise you will not survive. So what happens? So the child is not, as he said, the child loses the authenticity to feel what he's feeling, to express what he's going through, because that's going to be at the cost of the attachment relationship. So child thinks the problem lies with me. So what is my problem? Why is it that my mom is not picking me up when I'm crying? Maybe I'm not lovable enough. Why aren't they listening when I say I need something? Maybe I'm not so of much value after all. So these are called limiting beliefs, which unconsciously again, which the child starts forming, the limiting beliefs. The umbrella of that is I'm not good enough, but under that umbrella there are I'm not lovable enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not competent enough, I don't have enough value, a whole gamut of beliefs. And we all have it. We all have these limiting beliefs, but it's on a scale. Just like the trauma is, we all have trauma. The difference is some people know they have trauma, some people don't know they have trauma. And even of the ones who know they have trauma, very few will actually do something about it. But it's on a scale. And also the limiting beliefs, we all will, because you won't have perfect parents, and not that they don't love us, but they are not perfect parents. So everybody won't be perfect, they will be doing their best. So that healthy emotional development will be also on a scale. So depending on that, the limiting belief will be also be there, but for some it's not that pronounced, but for some it will be there in a very pronounced way. But it's all unconscious, not at a conscious level. So then what happens? How would someone feel to think, I don't have enough value? Is it a very comfortable thing to feel? No, so what do? I have to do something about it. Oh, I have to make myself be of value. So I have to do things. So I keep helping people. I become a therapist, I become a counselor, because everybody will value me. Everybody will want to come to me. Then I feel I am of some value. I can become a doctor. All these patients will be there coming to consult me, and I will feel valuable. And when I feel really I have no power, I am powerless, I might want to end up being a politician. They have all this power. So these are compensatory behaviors that come up with our limiting beliefs, and these all are happening unconsciously. And also we adapt to the situation. I'm not good enough, and this attachment has not been there the way I need it. So I also adapt to that situation as a child. All this happens in childhood. So how do I adapt? So if I'm not happy and I feel sad, but I cannot express itself, it's not easy for a child to feel sad. So the child, one thing the child may do is to push down the feelings, not to feel it. It's so much more comfortable. So they will do all sorts of things. They might crack jokes, they'll be hyperactive, they might be really naughty to get attention, or sometimes they might even just get into a freeze mode and not want to do anything, and then we say, oh, such a lazy child. But these are how you adapt to these situations. So these are coping mechanisms and adaptations to what is going on in your life. And ADHD, things like attention deficit, you have only short spans of attention, because if you stay focused onto one thing for too long, all this comes up. I can't bear it. I don't want to feel it. So your attention span is very short. You jump from this to this to this, leaving no space to feel your emotions. So we call it, it's labeled as ADHD, yes, but it's an adaptation to what was going on in your life. So this is good for as a child. It helps you to survive the childhood, and it's good because most important thing is survival. And now you have survived, and that's really great. Any questions, anything you'd like to ask, anything you'd like to share?
In that phase of things that are happening,
Yeah.
won't the child become rebellious?
Yeah. Yeah.
And disruptive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. Because what happens when I'm rebellious and disruptive? What happens?
Attention.
Attention. So the child is seeking, yearning for attention, and that's the only way he knows to get it. Because otherwise he has to make this big impact to get this attention, and it will be a very negative attention, but he's getting some attention. So how sad it is, but that's what happens. Yeah.
So do you give the attention? You know how in the supermarkets you see these children?
Yeah.
So as parents,
Yeah.
some are told ignore.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
But then you give the sweet.
Yeah.
So what is the right?
Yeah. So give me an example.
In the supermarket.
Okay. So you're with your child in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Child is,
He's demanding.
He's demanding.
Yeah.
I want my lollipop.
And around how old do you think this child is?
Maybe 4,
Okay.
3, 4,
Right.
5.
Okay.
I think everybody would have seen
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
videos, it or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So what is
What do you do?
what do you do?
Yeah.
Even in restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes. So what is actually happening? Why do you think the child is playing up in the supermarket?
Attention. But
Yeah. So where has the attention not been there? That he's behaving like this in the supermarket.
public place.
Yeah. So where has that exactly? So what has actually happened?
So it always originates from the home.
Yeah.
From her.
Yes. So they act out, what we call acting out. But around 2 years of age is a time the child will start to say, no, no, come and have your lunch, no, take this, no, and think, no. And there's this famous saying, do you want an apple? No, I want an apple. So because that's the time the child is learning to say no. That's the time he's learning to assert himself. Because if you can't say no, then your yes is of no point. It has no value. Because you actually can't say no. So that's the time the child is learning to say it. So everything, no, I don't want to do it, have your dinner, no, have this, no, no, no. So you don't crush that. You don't crush the no. You have to deal with it in a different way. Yeah, I know you, I want a cookie, I don't want my dinner. Yes, I know, you just had a cookie, now it's time for you to dinner. So you give the child that attention, but you don't crush him. Because that is actually, he's learning a skill of saying no, and that's how he will be able to say no as an adult in his life, in lots of different situations when he needs to say no. And also anger, healthy anger. It's about saying no, stop it. This is my space. So as when it's a child, you don't crush that. Because if you crush it, if you crush the child and don't allow him to feel the anger, then he's going to keep it also within himself. And that is going to come up in lots of problems later on. Clear? Any other questions? Can I stand here? Because it gets into, sorry, yeah. But I'm blocking that, sorry, yeah. Anything else you'd like to share, ask, clarify? And everybody on Zoom, if you have any questions, please type it and send, because we cannot, it's not very audible when you speak. In the meantime, is there anything else, anyone? Even some clarification or sharing of experience? Yes?
Yeah. I work a little bit with children.
Yes.
I often get told my child has ADHD. I work in an education space. And it's almost as if they get diagnosed because somehow they're born with it. But from what you said, I understood it's environment.
Exactly.
That makes this happen
Yes.
at all, right?
Yes.
So it's about how they learn to interact with the rest of the world.
Yes. So its attention deficit is being in one place was too much for whatever reason. So they keep the attention short spans.
I often feel that parents think they're born with it. So they're sort of into denial that what the child is facing is causing this issue. So you need to give medicine, all that kind of thing.
Well, it depends on the scale of it. So sometimes medication may be necessary, but there are also activities, people who are trained to work with ADHD children. And it's so much easier to think this is genetic, somebody is born with it, because it's too difficult to accept that this is something that happened in the environment. And this is really not about blaming anybody, but just to understand what happened. Truth is painful, but it's knowing the truth which will set you free. Yeah. It's labeled as it's like a diagnosis, but it's an adaptation.
In a situation where, say, individual doesn't get to say no.
Yeah.
And it's been a recurrent in status that a person goes on with, and eventually in life there are situations that you don't say no.
Yeah.
And those lead into turmoil.
Yeah.
What would be the remedy out of that?
Yeah, we'll come to it later on. Yes. So has the question come? It has been texted?
No.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I'm not really questioning you, Sepali.
You can question me, no problem. I don't profess to know everything. I'm also learning, yeah.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah.
But then in a way, I'm really questioning you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you for admitting it. Yes. Yeah.
And the most of assumptions
yes.
of the very young babies,
yeah.
that they are stressed, traumas, all that, are they all backed by scientific?
Yes, this is all backed by research. Thousands and thousands of papers of research done by the most Harvard and very recognized places. Unfortunately, they have not been incorporated into the medical system. Unfortunately, globally. Doctors in their medical training hardly hear about trauma. I don't think teachers are taught about trauma. I don't think the lawyers, the judges, the police, everyone should know about trauma. But unfortunately, I think people are getting to know about it more now. Yeah, this research has been done in the 60s, 50s, 60s. But only now it's coming out. They are wanting to look at it because they now realize the mechanisms we've been using to deal with the problems that have come up later on in life are really not working. So now minds are being opened to look at it. And this is based all on research. This is not just somebody's Gabor Mate's theory which he made up. It's all based on research. And not only he, I mean, if you take all the trauma-informed therapies like Dr. Peter Levine, Dr. Dan Siegel, Bessel van der Kolk, they're all experts in trauma. I mean, this is the foundation for all of them, even in psychology. Yes.
Can I?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I like to share with you a small story that will really help the argument that you are bringing here. I have been working with an adopted Sri Lankan girl. She has been given for adoption when she was 10 months old. And when you talk about the children who have lost the attachment, all what you shared, I see in her. She is an hyperactive, had been a hyperactive child. And even when we have kind of meditation session, she says she can't close eyes because she thinks she will not survive. She can't close her eyes and remain with others. And you know, when she came here in search of her roots, and the lack of literacy, what you are saying, you know, here the people says, why you are worried about your roots, you are well off there, you know, and I think for her it is, you know, it is most difficult for her to bear when that is denied. Why you are, when that attachment is gone, and she is suffering, she is doing well there, I mean, but she's not.
She's not, So this happens with adoption. So it can be a baby. It can be an infant who is adopted. And the foster parents or the parents who have adopted, I mean, can be lovely people. They can be really, really good people. But the child feels something missing. It's that trauma of the separation. The child won't remember to know what it is at a conscious level, but unconscious level it's there. So,
they have a group of Facebook group where most of the adopted children are there, and she allowed me to see some of the notes, and some you know, now they are in 30s, and they say they are worried about having a baby because their trauma will come. That, you know, they all,
so that's a generational trauma. So when our parents were unable to give us that attachment need, which we so desperately need as babies, it is not because they don't love us. It's because they have their own stuff, their own trauma, and that's called the generational trauma. It goes from generation to generation until you decide, I'm going to stop this and heal myself. And then you stop passing it. And when you actually heal yourself, you can also heal your ancestors and your descendants, because it affects everyone around you. And Dr. Dan Siegel, he's a professor UCLA, professor, scientist, researcher, psychiatrist. He calls it the interpersonal neurobiology, how we are all connected. And he has written a book called Intraconnected, Me plus we he called. So he says we are all connected. And as we heal ourselves, it is now our rest. What happened in the past happened. We can't change that. But now, and if we say, play the victim card, I mean, we are just stuck there. But we have to take on the responsibility for ourselves and say, okay, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to heal myself. And when you do that, it has an effect on the people around you as well. So this, as you said, the people here who said, why aren't you happy? Why are you looking for this? Because they are not talking. Okay, so another coping mechanism is that when feeling the emotions is too tough, too painful, you push it down and you start rationalizing. You understand. Because it's easier to feel, easier to be analytical and understand it in your brain rather than feel the pain. So they become very rational people, but they have blocked their emotions so much they are not able to feel, and that will always have an impact on your life. Because we human beings, I think I'm going a little bit from the childhood. Anyway, we human beings, for us to evolve, feeling our emotions is vital. And if we don't do that, if we block it out, we are stuck there. We cannot evolve to the next level. So when they say, why aren't you, you're just talking rationally, they are not connecting with her emotions. That's why they're saying, and I mean, we all do it. I have done it myself. This is not looking down or passing judgment on anybody, because this is what happens. So that is actually what happens, and what happens. And there's a vacuum in that child who cannot explain it, because that is still in the implicit memory, cannot actually remember. But always there's something we can do about it. I'll come to that later. But any other questions? Yeah.
So there are two, one experience sharing and a question via Zoom. One is Bante from Bante Sila. He's saying a friend's daughter dislikes to take a wash in the evening. Then she hides and runs away or go to sleep without having a wash. Friend asked me to help his daughter to learn to take a wash. I told them to forget the conversation, and I took the child alone and asked why she does not like to take a wash in the evening. She told she does not like to make her hair wet, as it bothers her to sleep in, with wet hair overnight. The father said the girl should grow her hair, and now the child is taking medical treatment for ADHD. So that's an experience sharing. Then there's a question from Primar. Due to various disabilities, people with disabilities struggle with trauma and mental health issues in Sri Lanka. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so actually trauma affects you physically with illness, disease, emotionally, mentally. So that is the impact of trauma. And yeah, so the person who has a disability there's more trauma building up on because of the way that person is being treated in society. So what is the question?
Wants to know your thoughts about how it's being perceived in the society, and that is more or less like bullying, or especially disabled.
How it is being perceived by society. It's not clear to me. So he wants to know how people look at disabled people? Is that what he's asking?
So there is, he's saying, due to various disabilities, people with disabilities struggle with trauma.
Yeah, actually the trauma also had an impact. Was the disability, depending on what I won't say everything, but would have a result of trauma, yes, ends with disability depending on what. I don't know what the disability, yeah. So, and the question is? And yes, and then when you're disabled, then you have to face a lot of other things as well. So that is adding on to your trauma. It's making it worse, yeah. Is any question?
No, that's basically asking about your thoughts.
All right.
That's about it.
Is he okay with that answer? Anything else? So people who are really busy all the time, workaholics, addiction. So that's all about coping. You're soothing. What is addiction? You're soothing yourself. Why are you taking that alcohol? Why are you taking that drug? Why are you keeping yourself so busy? Why are you a shopaholic? It helps you. What happens as you take that? Oh, you're feeling good, feeling relaxed, you're feeling so much better. Why do you need to feel relaxed? What is happening that you need to take this to get this relaxation, which is a normal human need? That's a human need. We need to feel relaxed, to be relaxed. So he's unable to get that. So he needs to take this pill, and it helps him. It's soothing himself. So the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. What is causing the pain? That he needs to go to this substance to feel better about himself. Trauma again. So Gabor Mate's famous quote, not why the addiction, but why the pain. That's where the exploration has to go. That's where you have to look at if you're working with the addict. So being a workaholic, shopaholics, addiction can be anything. Pornography, it can be anything. And another coping mechanism is dissociation. You dissociate, you're not connected to yourself. Sometimes you're in a dream world. You don't know what has happened. Because then you don't feel the pain, you don't feel that suffering. So a lot of people, dissociation, it's called dissociation, but it's about disconnecting with yourself. You're in another world. You're not with your thoughts, with your emotions. Can I continue? Any other questions?
I do have another question.
Yes, please.
Says, so it's connected again to education,
Yeah.
to schools.
Yeah.
I feel and believe almost that schools continue to, on a daily basis, traumatize children.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Because they have no knowledge of this,
Yeah, so in a way, I'm trying to, I'm in a place where I'm trying to see how do I express this compassionately. Because it's like school is actually a place of, there's crime committed on children in the name of education and grades and assessments and sports also, which used to be a safe place for them to have fun and learn to play with others in a civil way and all that. But even that space has been taken over by so much performance.
Yeah.
And the whole place is a traumatizing experience, and I find that parents do struggle with it, but they are not able to address it or advocate for it.
The myth of normal, trauma, illness and healing in a toxic culture, Gabor Mate. What we think is normal, this performance, grades or sports or what, is actually not normal.
Yeah, so it's like, why is it that most of us adults
it's a culture.
are not able to reflect on this and stop this generational trauma? Is where I am. Why can't we? Why is it so difficult for us to accept that we have been traumatized and that we shouldn't pass it on? That is what is the space I am in, and I don't have an answer.
Because we don't know it. We have no clue that we have trauma. I think that last post, that is difficult to get, and it's okay, we can. But it's because we have no knowledge. That's what perpetuates the trauma. We don't know. Even if the people who have some inkling, only very few people will want to do something about it. And it's also our culture. Our culture. It's a culture we are very materialistic, performance-oriented. So it's not about encouraging you to be the way you are. You're being pushed. This mark, this team, that team, this university, because that's how you're being measured in today's culture, which he calls a toxic culture. That's our measurement. So this is what's happening. And there's this generational trauma, which is continuing, and we pass it on to our kids, and they pass it on to their kids.
It gets worse in the so-called bigger schools also, because parents struggle so much to get them in.
And not only here, even in the developed countries.
So like then, the solution, okay, then take your child off instead of working to end it. So then the parent doesn't even question the system.
Because parent is so helpless. It's our society.
But there is no stop to it.
How do we come out of it?
It's about being conscious, being aware, getting started somewhere. That's why there's all this, they call it a global mental health renaissance taking place now. So many things going on. If you get so many resources available, so many free seminars on trauma. Oh my God, I can't even follow so many happening. And those all are free. It's happening globally. There's a renaissance on mental health because people are realizing this is not working for us. And you know, we were meant to live in communities. Sorry, I can't look at you because this is coming. So we were meant to live in communities, and that's how we are wired to live in communities. And when when in the communities, in the olden days, maybe some of you can remember, when the person is pregnant, when the mother is pregnant, everybody looked after her. They won't expose her to any difficult, some bad news, or they will keep all that away from her. They will give her nourishing food. She's treated like a queen. And when the baby is born, there are so many people to carry the baby, aunts, uncles, because the whole community was there. But today we are living in isolation. This is modern living, and the demands on the mother and also on the father. He's got to get the car, the house, the designer stuff, this, that, this one is having, that one is this university, that university. So the demands are overwhelming. So what do you expect? This is what has happened. But we were actually, when we were living in communities, that support was not there. But that time it was about the collective, now it's more about the individual. I think it's got to be a balance of both.